Hello, I'm Falk Rieker of Finextra, and we're here at Cybos 2014 in Boston, and I'm joined today by Falk Rieker of SAP. So Falk, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me here.
No problem. So we've seen a lot of innovation in retail consumer payments recently, but why has the crossover to B2B payments been so slow to catch on?
Yeah, indeed. When you look at the recent innovations, and just to name a few, like Square, what PayPal did, Google Wallet, Facebook payments, Walmart Money Card, or Apple Pay recently, yeah. Indeed, they are on the consumer side mainly. Yeah. I think there are a couple of parameters which make it a bit more difficult or logical for entrants to focus on consumer payments rather than commercial payments, so corporate payments. First thing is obviously when you look at these innovators, or call them disruptors, I just mentioned a couple of names, most of them have a consumer background. So they're coming from a consumer, from a retail world, and they're trying to replicate what they did in other parts of their business very successfully and bring it over to financial service, namely to banking, payments, and other services banks provide. Well, that's one reason, do what you're doing best, yeah, and try to leverage your core competency. I think the second thing is corporate payments are much more complex than consumer payments. When you think about the entire process, when you think about cross-border payments, when you think about the related services for the financial supply chain. So there's a sophistication and experience necessary which make it a bit more difficult for entrants to get in. Yeah? So the banks have a natural advantage in that space based on their decades-long experience in that space. And the third one is the market entry barrier and the regulations. Yeah? When you look at the regulations which go along around sanctions, and specifically the fines which some of the banks had to pay over the past couple of years, it's almost protective. Yeah? So to get for new players in and have to be exposed to such a high risk, in terms of potential fines. So they stick very much to consumer payments, and corporate payments, they'll wait until the time is right.
Okay. It's interesting you talk about the complexity of B2B payments. This environment which allows for B2B, so I'm talking legacy systems, cross-border, do you think that could ever be simplified enough to allow for innovation?
First of all, I think the systems they have in place, the landscapes, the partnerships to really do these transactions around the globe are a burden and a curse at the same time. Yeah? So on the one side, they are a differentiator. So it's very hard to copy, very hard to replicate for new entrants. It takes a long time to build all these expertise and networks up. And obviously the investments in the systems. On the other side, they are rarely standardized. So it creates complexity, and I think from an operational cost perspective, that's not sustainable over time. Yeah? So what we see is there will be further consolidation on margin on pressure, and that will force banks to standardize more. And with standardization comes simplification. And that frees up budget again, which can be for innovation. Yeah? A good example we see at the moment, and coming back to the question, is there enough room for innovation? If standardization kicks in, there is room for innovation. And digitalization, digital payments is a good example for that. We see banks more and more looking for platforms rather than building siloed application or continue to do their patchwork in that space.
Okay. So in simple terms, how can this simplification that you're talking about be actually achieved for onboarding more real-time payments and multi-bank relationships?
Yeah, when you let's take one topic at a time. Let's start with the onboarding. a cumbersome process. Yeah? When you look how long it takes to onboard a large corporate to a new bank, to a new bank relation, I should better say, it can take months, between 3 and 6 months, where you don't earn anything with the customer, you're just being busy onboarding them and establishing the connections. Obviously, when you look at this is not scalable. Yeah? If it takes you 6 months, 3 months, 4 or 5 months, whatever the time frame is, it's too long. Yeah? So what we have brought to the market here is what we call the Financial Services Network. And that Financial Services Network is a cloud-based offering that standardizes the connection between corporates that use an ERP, in this case an SAP ERP system, and the banks. Yeah? So we pull the data out in a standard format, provide it to the banks as a cloud service, and by that the onboarding should be much faster. Yeah? We believe it goes down from months to weeks. Yeah? And that itself is a big achievement when you look at it. Yeah? Second piece, real-time payments you mentioned. There is a huge potential when you look at the time how it takes to settle payments, especially cross-border payments. When you go to the website of most of the big banks, it says it usually takes between 1 and 5 business days, but it can take up to 2 weeks. Yeah? So thinking about that in a digitalized world, where you don't have any paper anymore and you send everything instantly from one bank to the other, what can take 2 weeks or 5 days to settle a payment? That time needs to go down. Yeah? And digitalization, standardization is certainly driving the process here. And we see more and more providers that offer real-time platforms. The second thing which banks struggle in that case is their complex landscapes, sometimes outdated, very siloed application, lots of interfaces, data reconciliation, remittance data reconciliation necessary. Banks have to review their landscape and think about a payment hub concept based on a real-time platform where they can handle multiple payment types. And by the way, all types of payments, all types of currency, including digital currencies, to have the complete flexibilities to support real-time payments. The third thing you mentioned was the connectivity from corporates to banks in terms of multi-bank relationships. When you look at, we are not only dealing with banks at SAP, we obviously have more than 200,000 corporate customers as well. And we have done a survey and 65% of the CFO says there is possibility to improve the communication and connectivity between the treasury department, so meaning the corporate, and on the other side, the bank. So standardizing that connection and enabling customers to connect to multiple banks and have choice, rather than being kept in a proprietary system. And they say, this is how I have to deliver to bank A, this is how I have to deliver the data to bank B. It's not the way going forward. These corporates want to provide the data once and then want to have the choice to decide between bank A for this, bank B for that, bank C for that. And that's exactly where the standardization kicks in, where Financial Services Network, where Ariba Pay kicks in. And we believe when you put all these together, speeding up the onboarding process, implement real-time payments, and providing choice to the corporate customers and increase competition as well, then you will see a lot of innovation and you will see real-time payments on the corporate side in digital form in the very near future.